The best salespeople aren't selling, they're asking good questions and listening. I think this is one of the most underrated things that's maybe not being taught as well as it should when it comes to sales, and specifically to today's topic, qualifying your leads. The leads are going to qualify themselves if you just are asking good questions. All right, guys, I'm super excited to dive into today's topic. The goal of today is to show you guys the best way to qualify your leads. I think this is such an important thing. We had a great conversation on our coaching call just before this, talking about this very topic. Dylan, who's in here right now, asked about follow-up, right? What's the best way to create a better follow-up process? So Dylan, don't let me forget to dive into that, because I feel like that conversation we had was so valuable. For those of you guys that don't know me, my backstory, my story is I started my career in the NFL, was living out my childhood dream, and it was unbelievable, amazing. Everything about it was perfect. Nine out of 10 things were perfect. The one thing that wasn't perfect was I got switched from tight end to fullback. And if you guys know about football, fullback is a brutal position, and I was really good at fullback, but I had to use my head a lot as a battering ram, and just felt it way too much, and realized that if I kept doing it, I was probably going to be a vegetable before too long. So transitioned from the NFL to corporate. Thought that was going to be, pretty good living, was going to be pretty comfortable, safe, what I wanted, but I quickly realized after a little over a year, it was not going to get me back to that dream life I saw was possible with the NFL. And so I went to Google and found real estate, started with wholesaling, and been now doing that for over a decade, just in my 10th year in Central California, where I do all my investing. I live in San Diego, where I enjoy living, and basically do everything virtual since day one. Done 600 deals now. The past couple years, we've been doing 100 deals a year, which has been really fun to achieve that. Have a rental portfolio, almost $10 million, and been coaching students. All right. So guys, the one thing that I ask is that all of us connect with each other. I have found that the biggest impact to my business growth on the real estate side has been connecting with more people. There's always some little bit of information I learn, some little way we can do a deal together. Like there's always growth that comes with the more people that I meet. So strongly encourage you guys to connect with me on Instagram. Let's stay connected. Let's get better together. All right. So back to showing you guys the best way to qualify your leads. I think it's important to call out here that you're going to deal with just two different types of people: motivated and unmotivated people. It's really important to understand that, because based on who you're talking to, it's going to change the way that conversation goes, the way that you kind of handle the way you're asking questions. And something that I might have made up myself, someone may have said this before too: the best salespeople aren't selling, they're asking good questions and listening. Okay, just to repeat that, the best salespeople aren't selling, they're asking good questions and listening. I think this is one of the most underrated things that's maybe not being taught as well as it should when it comes to sales, and specifically to today's topic, qualifying your leads. The leads are going to qualify themselves if you just are asking good questions. And one of the biggest problems that we face is that we're sitting there trying to sell the seller on why they should go with us. They don't give a crap about us, guys. So I hate to break it to you. They don't really care about us. They care about solving their problem. It's not selfish. It's just they called us because we're the ones that are supposed to have the solution. We have the cash offer. We have the quick, easy close, no repairs, no commissions, no closing costs, right? And anyone else they call is going to have the same terms nowadays anyways as well. So what's going to separate you from the other people? Well, you sure as heck better not be sitting there trying to sell them on all the same stuff they already know. Those are table stakes, okay? You need to be asking good questions and listening so you can solve their problem. That's what we're there to do. If you can solve their problem, then there's a really good chance they're going to go with you. They don't need to call anyone else. You already solved their problem. They're already ready to move forward. Okay, so we're problem solving, and we need to do everything we can to solve their problem. Now, what happens when you solve their problems? This is a deal we just closed this last Thursday. $105,000, guys. That's a shitload of money. Does anybody here, show of hands that's on camera, anybody like to make $105,000 on one deal? This is a wholesale deal. We closed it in a week. Didn't own it for one day. That's a lot of money. That moves the needle for me. I like $105,000. Okay. The rest of the team liked $105,000. So to me, if you can ask good questions and you can solve the problem, then you can make a lot of money. Okay. If you're just trying to sell them on why you're a good fit and you're trying to compete and be better than the next guy, then chances are your deals are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. That's a little trick there, guys, if you didn't catch it. If you want to make less money, focus on your competition, focus on competing, focus on selling them on why you're the best. But if you're focused on solving the problem, you're going to make more money. Now, when it comes to who you're talking to, the personality types are really important. Okay. There's 4 different types of personality types, and I won't read every word here. And many of you have probably heard of this before, but who you're talking to is really important, because that's going to determine how you need to talk to them back. The person that's most like me is the analytical person, motivated by facts. They don't really give a lot of emotion or reaction to things. They're not very quick in making a decision. Before I found REsimpli, I used Google Sheets for 5 or 6 years because I was slow and resistant to stay committed to a CRM. I tried Podio twice and failed implementing it. And I found REsimpli. I was like, holy crap, this is what I've been looking for. And then Sharad and I spoke on the phone for about an hour. I was like, dude, I'm all in. Like, this is what I've been looking for. So the analytical person, you're not gonna sell them really hard, right? They need the details. And so it's important for you to understand, if you're talking to them, to give them the information that they need, right? The driver, you're going to face the driver a lot. This is the person who is very assertive, right? They like to have control of the call. They don't listen very well, right? You might have told them what your process is. You might have tried to set good expectations at the beginning of the call, and they're going to tell you how the call is going, right? And they're going to tell you how they need your offer, and they're not answering your questions, right? They're really stubborn. But if you can mirror their personality and be a little quicker and give good reason why you need information from them, you might be able to hit it off with them, and then they're decisive. They might make a decision quickly. Okay. The social person, they're more based on the relationships. They have more emotion that they bring to those conversations. They like to tell stories. They're very spontaneous. They can make decisions quickly and impulsively, but you got to really keep them on track. But you do want to focus on building that relationship. You do want to participate in some storytelling too, because that's going to make them feel comfortable. The last person, the social conscious, this is the person I've spoken to, and I can distinctively, kind of pick them out of a crowd. They're good to talk to, good people. They really care about who they're going with, They really care about who's going to buy the house when it's all fixed up, right? They care about the community, right? These are the people that you need to lean in to that side of your storytelling. You need to make them feel like you're the right fit and decision for them. And usually they're a little slower in their decision-making process, but if you're patient with them, you can put a deal together. So has anybody spent time, show of hands that are on camera, has anybody spent time thinking or studying or learning about the different type of personality types? Show of hands.
We've started looking into it since the last call you were on. And my question was, have you noticed like one personality type is easier to work with than the other? Like if you had to pick one, which one
Yeah.
would you pick to work with?
Yeah. I would say the social is probably the easiest to work with, especially if they're motivated. If they're motivated, they have problems, you can solve that problem for them. They're very easy to talk to. They're going to give you all the answers that you need. They're going to go through the seller script without problems, and they're fast to make a decision. Okay, all right, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do this. That's the easiest person to work with. Analytical, you got to sell. I said not to sell them, but you have to give them the answers they're looking for that check the boxes, right? So if in their mind it matches up with what their expectations were, the analytical for me and my personality type is easy to transfer that information that they're looking for to them just based on having more experience and more stories I've experienced. So I think that analytical, if their expectations weren't way up here, then they're not that bad either. The driver is the hardest to deal with because they're just really abrasive. But I feel like if you can let them know you're not a pushover in a professional way and help them understand why it's helpful to them if they participate and follow your process to a certain extent, then you can put a deal together. But it takes a little bit more skill to navigate that driver because they're just kind of a pain in the ass.
So are you guys changing like your salesperson, are you guys changing your personality to kind of depending on who they're talking to mirror, or if you're talking to a driver, you don't want to be assertive to a driver, but you may want to be, I don't know, like more social conscious. Is that kind of what you guys look into?
Yeah. So for me, when it comes to how to handle the different personality types, for me, I always want to mirror. So whatever the personality they are, I want to mirror that because I have found and at least learned and heard from others that have taught on the subject that a person is going to feel most comfortable when they're around someone that's like them. If you think about your friends, a lot of the times the friends that you have, they might not come from the same walk of life, but they may have the same morals. They may have the same, interests and different things like that. They might like to talk similarly, different things like that. So for me, if I'm mirroring that personality type, they're going to feel more comfortable with that conversation. They're going to feel like, they're around themselves, maybe around their peers or their friends. So that's what we try to do. When it's analytical, more facts, more walking them through the details of the process, being a little bit more precise. The social person, it's storytelling time. It's making them feel comfortable. It's changing the tone of your voice. Okay. So that's another important thing. The tone of your voice is very important when talking to the different types of people. The analytical person, right? We talked about this. They're not very emotional. So if you're just trying to be like, oh my gosh, how does that make you feel? They're gonna be like, are you kidding me? Like, what is this, a therapy session? They're not going to be very, very receptive to that. But if we're just talking facts, we're talking professionally, they're going to feel very comfortable because they're used to that setting, right? They may be in a corporate job and they're used to that type of conversation. Whereas a social person, you really do need to change the inflections of your tone, right? And then drivers just more like to the point. Let's talk.
And Roshan has a question. Do you have to be careful with getting false positive from these personality types? Meaning, seller says yes in the heat of the moment, but then they're slower to like respond or commit to once they go into contract.
That's a good question. Let me look at this. You have to be careful with getting false positives from these archetypes, et cetera. The seller says yes in the heat of the moment, but ends up being slower to commit once under contract. This is a really good question. Okay.
Yeah, we've had one deal fall through exactly because of that reason.
Yep. That's a really good point. So this all comes back to the topic of qualifying the leads. If we've done a good job and we haven't rushed putting that deal together in the heat of the moment, so to speak, then we're going to understand truly how motivated they were, and we've helped them think through the whole process. So we'll dive into this more later, but this topic is really good for helping them see this through to the finish line and help avoid some of those potential roadblocks or obstacles that are going to give them that seller's remorse, right? So that's a really good question. So I'll touch more on that. Make sure I don't forget to touch more on it. When it comes to negotiation tips, guys, just some really key fundamentals here. We want to focus on helping the seller. Again, we're not selling. We're focusing on helping the seller. If you can get your mind aligned with every phone call, I'm here to help this person. We're not some hero. We're not, wearing a cape or anything like that. We're not saving the day. But if we're focused on helping the seller, then our questions are going to be that much more thoughtful and that much more intentional and that much more curious. That's the key right there. If you can focus on helping the seller, then you're gonna be asking better questions. And mirroring the personality is a big part of that, right? We talked about it with the personality types. And then something that I think when we're getting started, this is a real big challenge because we're just trying to find our comfort, but try not to sound scripted. If you're just reading off the questions, you're going to struggle to get to that deeper level, that more personal level, because you're just sounding scripted. So I challenge you, whatever script you may be following, because naturally we're all following some sort of script at the beginning, go through that and practice it and find a way to make it your own. Make those questions sound and feel the way that you would say it naturally, so that you can find comfort in the way you ask it and so that it doesn't sound and feel scripted. Next here is your longer calls. I have found that a longer call increases the chance of me putting a deal together without question. If you're having a lot of 5-minute phone calls, well, then you're probably not doing a lot of deals. I can tell you that right now. For me, anytime I was looking down at my phone and I was 30 minutes deep into a call, I knew damn sure that there was a really good chance that there was going to be a deal at the end of this call or the next call we were going to have. Because if you're 30 minutes deep into a call and you're not just wasting your time, you're truly not wasting your time just talking about nothing, and they are motivated, you discovered that they were motivated early, then that means that they're giving you lots of information. And the more information you get, the more that you're going to be in the position to understand whether there's a deal here or not, right? And so I challenge every single one of you guys, if you aren't doing longer calls for one reason or another, right? I've done lots of sales training. I've seen lots of content online. Some people will say, don't spend more than 5 minutes on the first call. I couldn't disagree with that more than anything. From my experience and what I see works best. The longer I spend on the first call, when I have a captive audience, when they likely reached out to me, unless you're cold calling, when they reached out to me in the moment, wanting to find that solution, I want to spend as much time as they'll give me to solve their problem. And I need to spend as much time on that call to solve their problem so they don't go looking somewhere else, or they just feel like it's not going to work and they decide for themselves that it's not worth pursuing any further. That brings us to our last point here. And we talked about this on the coaching call just before we joined this call here. Ask better questions and dig deeper. If you can do that, then you're going to help problem solve, right? You're going to find out the information you need. So let's move on here to the next piece here, which is the seller script and the offer script. So we do a two-step sales process, which is that first call. We take the pressure off of ourselves to get a deal done. That's why we do a two-step sales process. I think that's really important. I think we put too much pressure on ourselves to be prepared to make an offer or be prepared to get a deal done or negotiate on that first call when we necessarily haven't done all the due diligence we need. And so we do a two-step sales process: the seller script call and then our offer script call. So let's go ahead and dive into the seller script here. So for me, guys, this is where you qualify the lead. You got to qualify the lead by going through the entire seller script if the seller will let you. Okay. And why do I say if the seller will let you? Because there's going to be some unmotivated sellers that are not willing to go and spend that much time with you. Okay. And a big part of whether they're going to be willing or not to spend that time with you is the expectations you set up front. So for me, there's 10 talking points in the seller script that I have. The first one is the introduction. For me, this is an opportunity to not only get their information, but to start your due diligence, to make sure that you're having the best call that you can have. So on that introduction, whether it's an inbound or outbound call, will determine kind of how you ask the questions. But for me, I want to get their information right at the beginning so I can go to Zillow and I can do a search on their property. I want to see what they might have seen on Zillow. I want to see what the Google Street View looks like. I want to see the specs of the house, bed and bath, square footage, because that's going to give me some context to the questions I'm going to ask. Okay. So the next thing here, when it comes to establishing expectations, credibility, and trust, for me, this is really important to set yourself up for a good call. Okay. And you can say this in a couple of different ways, but more or less, this isn't where I'm going into my sales pitch and saying why I'm the best fit. This is where I'm basically telling them how I need to spend 5 to 10 minutes with them. That way I can talk with my partners. Okay. Again, taking the pressure off yourself. I can talk with the partners to see what this property qualifies for. And we're just looking to get, a decision from them. That's all that we're asking from them. And if it's something that we can move forward with, great. If not, no big deal, no pressure. We gave it our best shot, right? And then we want to create some urgency. This isn't just a, hey, bring us your deal, shop it around, see what the best is you can get. We want to create some urgency right at the beginning of the call. And I think that's really important because if they feel like this is on the, an option for them, but not forever, then it's going to help bring out that motivation a little bit more. We're now putting the pressure on them. Okay. We're gaining control of that conversation and having them believe they need to sell us on why it's a good fit. Okay. So, hey, I'm glad you called us today. We just sold a property in your area. We have some funds available to buy another one. So hopefully your house is a good fit. With that being said, if we look at your property, come to an agreement on a fair price, you're definitely ready to sell, right? So I think I personally love creating urgency, saying it with enthusiasm, changing my tone a little bit. Hey, I'm really glad you called us. We just sold another house. We got some money available right now to buy another house. We're looking at 3 others right now, and we're looking to make a decision within the next couple of days. So you just called us. This house might be a good fit for us. I'd love to find out more about it and see if we can put something together. If we do come to an agreement, you're definitely ready to sell now, right? So that's just a soft creating some urgency, and it's also doing a little bit of qualification because you're going to get a, oh yeah, sure, yeah. If we can come to an agreement, I'd love to sell. Or no, I'm not ready to sell. Like, what are you offering? You're going to get some responses from that. So I like to start there. So introduction, we get their information. We put up their information. We're looking online. Look, you might not even see that they have it listed. You might see that they had it listed and they took it off. There's going to be all sorts of things, but that's just part of that qualification process, why you want to do that search while you get their information. So we set the expectations, then we dive into motivation. Okay. This should be where the majority of the conversation should be. If you were to give a percentage of how much you should talk about motivation, I mean, it's going to be anywhere from 60 to 80% of the conversation should be about their motivation. You need to find out more details about the house and their timing and different things like that. But this is where the conversation should be. This is where we're qualifying them. And it just starts with the simple question of what has you thinking about selling right now? And we have to understand that they're either motivated or unmotivated. Another way of saying that is they're either moving away from pain, they have a serious problem, or they're moving towards pleasure. It would be nice to sell. Not something really I need. It'd be great, And so they're either motivated or unmotivated. And how we respond to what their motivation is going to be determined whether there's pain or pleasure that they're looking for. So if you look at this, right, we want to dig deeper. We want to dig further. So we talked about this on our last call I just mentioned. And a big part of so let's give a real life example. The example we had on our last call, Dylan said a seller had a son living in their property. And he was living there for much longer than she had anticipated. And she just, she wanted to sell. And Dylan said, well, how do I follow up the right way? Like, what is the right way to follow up? And my answer to that was, well, before you even follow up, you need to understand, the whole follow-up process needs to be an event. There needs to be an event that takes place as to why you are following up. If you're just following up to follow up, then that means you haven't qualified. You haven't dug deep enough into their problem. So when it comes to that seller example, she's got her son living there. I want to find out more about what she wants to do. So tell me, your son's living there. That's really frustrating to you. What happens if you sell the house? Where does he go? What's next for him? Does he have a job? Could he go get an apartment? Do you need to sell this house and give him some money so he can move out and just be kind of a problem that's done with you so you can get some money too? I mean, this property's just been sitting here doing nothing for you. You see, we got to ask these kind of questions to dig deeper. If we just say, what's your motivation for selling? What has you thinking about selling right now? Oh, my son's living in the property and I'd like to sell it because he's been living there too long. Oh, okay, great. Well, tell me about the condition of the property. We just missed our biggest opportunity to dive deeper. We have to understand how to solve that problem and what that problem being solved means for the seller. Okay. So that's the kind of thoughts we need to have. And we also need to tie into the emotional aspect of it too. And we're not going to get to that emotional level unless we've asked those more personal questions. Now, another pro tip for you guys is to not ask permission or not to apologize or anything like that. Remember, guys, they're reaching out to us as the professional to solve their problem. So I don't like to say things like, if you don't mind me asking, what's another way of saying that? If you don't mind me asking, sorry for asking this. Like there's a couple different ways you might have heard yourself say that, but we're not looking to ask permission. We want to just assume we can ask any question we want. Same thing with mortgage. Like, let them tell you no, they don't want to give you that information, but we need to assume we can ask any question we want because we need that information to help them solve that problem, right? That's another tip to help you guys through that. When it comes to the condition, we do need to ask some detailed questions. I like to ask detailed questions. This is an area I see even with my own team, guys, that it is just not done the right way. This is an opportunity when it comes to the condition to not only understand their motivation and where they're at mentally with the property, but it also gives you tools to use in that negotiation. It gives you leverage. So have you remodeled the house in the past 5 years? If the answer is no, well, then it's outdated. Okay. That's the starting point. Does it need any immediate repairs? If no, then, or let's just say if yes, That's another thing to lean on. That's creating leverage. And then I like to pretend I walk through the house. I like to ask details about the bathrooms and give examples to help prompt them. I like to ask about the kitchen, age of the roof, all these things. If you just gloss over this and they say, oh, yeah, it's in pretty good condition. Well, it might be in good condition, but if it's outdated, you need to do all the updates to make it HGTV style. And you need to actually say that out loud for them to hear that. And the reason that's so important is because that's essentially going to create the leverage in your negotiation. And if you're not doing that, then the seller is going to assume that their house is in great condition. It's in great shape. Okay. So for me, we got to lean in on the condition. That's going to be what we come back to when we talk about price.
Do you ask them to send you any pictures?
So, well, once we have them describe it, we either ask them to send us pictures, or we'll either have a team member go out and get pictures, or we'll have one of our buyers go out for us and get pictures. Now, when it comes to that kind of process, the majority of the deals we get under contract before we get pictures. And that's just based on the way that they describe the condition and the assumptions we make about the condition. Because look, unless there's fire damage or, it's a hoarder house with just like super neglected wear and tear, whether it's dirty or not, an outdated 70s bathroom needs all the same updates. It doesn't matter how dirty it is. You're going to rip everything out and it's going to cost the same amount of money regardless, unless there's like structural water damage or something. So most of the time we're not getting pictures before we get the contract.
Makes sense.
So when it comes to the occupancy, I'm going to kind of blow through these last parts of the seller script. Occupancy, another opportunity for you guys to really dig deep enough to understand. This is also important because helping to qualify them and how serious they are. If it's owner occupied, well, they got to move, right? Are they willing to move? Are they prepared to move? Have they thought about moving? Where are they moving to? Have they already selected a house? Those are the kind of questions we got to keep unraveling to truly understand how serious they are or are not. When it comes to timing, this is an obvious one, but I just like to prompt them and say, where are you at in the process? Are you looking to sell today, next week, next month? Where are you at with things? And if they give you another answer other than today, it's your opportunity to say, okay, so you're looking to sell next month. Does that mean, you'd like to have everything wrapped up by next month? Why is that? Do you still need to pack some things? What's preventing you from moving forward today? And if they don't have a good reason, then potentially you could bring that sale closer. Okay, well, let me let you know this. One of the things that's really great about working with us is we're really flexible, and sellers really like it when we close early so that money is in your bank account now, and then we give you additional time to move. Is that something that would work for you? And that just creates that opportunity to make that event of signing a contract now rather than waiting a month. Okay. So that's something to dive in there. Decision makers. This is an area that people miss out on too often as well. They get surprised that the spouse has an opinion and needs to weigh in later. They're surprised that there's a brother that needs to come in and review the contract. You got to dive deep into each and every single question, guys. It's an opportunity for us to create clarity for that seller. Roshan asked earlier, how do we prevent the seller from changing their mind? Well, we try to remove all obstacles by asking good enough questions through each and every single talking point. And by doing that, we create as least friction for ourselves as possible. right? If you just skip over decision makers, you get surprised that there's a family that all need to make the decision together. Well, they may come in after the fact, after you already signed the contract. We've had that happen on some deals lately. We had $70,000 between two deals, $70,000 fall out of escrow because my team didn't properly qualify the seller who made that spontaneous decision. They were the social personality type. They signed the deal, and then they called their son right after, hey, I got good news. And the son was pissed and blew up the deal. Okay. So we've got to make sure we're asking all these questions. Roadblocks. Let's assume you like our offer. We decide to move forward. What's the next thing you have to figure out, if anything? We want to remove all those roadblocks. And then when it comes to price, don't know how you guys are doing it now, but we like to ask them what they feel is a fair price for the property after we re-summarize everything, recap the condition, their situation, all the things that are going to give it good context rather than saying, how much do you want? We ask, what's a fair price? And then on that first call, we're not pressuring ourselves to give an offer. We want to ask and ask and ask, gather that information, and then we want to take it back to the seller, take it back to our partners, whether you have one or not, and see what the property qualifies for. And that just allows you to remove yourself as the one needing to negotiate. That's another way to create that comfort in the seller sharing information from you, because you are working on the same team as the seller. Okay. The last thing when it comes to price is you need to give a reaction to it. Even though we're not prepared to give an offer or a number, we still want to react to it. If they give a number that's too high, are you flexible on that price? That's a lot higher than I was thinking. We want to give a reaction to that number that they give, because that's going to help bring them back down to a more realistic number. Okay. And then going back to expectations, the last thing that we do, and going back to the conversation we had with Dylan and his seller and how to follow up. If we've done a good enough job qualifying the seller, asking all the questions, we're going to know what our next steps look like. We already know what needs to happen next to put a deal together. And let's just say with Dylan's situation, the seller wasn't motivated to sell now today. The problem wasn't big enough. We either need to help that seller realize how we can solve the problem today, or we need to have some meaningful event that happens between now and the next call. Okay. Now, the next call after our first one should be our offer call. Okay. Now, our offer call, we go through our offer script. We jump back on the phone. We summarize everything, right? Won't read it word for word, but we summarize everything that's going on, everything we talked about. We do now talk about the benefits of going with us. And then when we talk about our offer, we're not actually giving a number. We're not saying what the property qualified for. We're actually coming in and giving a range. So, hey, our partners had a chance to look at the market, did some research on what similar properties in your neighborhood are selling for. It looks like other investors are buying fixer-upper properties like yours from X to Y. Now, we didn't say that was our offer. And so if they, blow up on us, we can say, well, that's not my offer. That's just what other people are buying properties. So, do you think you'd be somewhere close to that? If they say, okay, all right, great. Well, where did you feel like your property fits within that range? Do you feel like yours needs a little bit more work and closer to X, or yours is a better shape closer to Y? And either one of those, anywhere in between there, is a good deal for you, right? You're not going to give numbers where the numbers don't work for you. So that's just a little negotiation hack there and tip and trick. But getting to this point where we make the offer, when it comes to what's next, we're either putting a deal together and sending a contract, or we're setting follow-up next steps. And the next steps have to be really clear. If you just are going to randomly follow up with them, then you didn't do a good enough job asking good enough questions. Okay. So And then when it comes to handling objections, there's a lot of different objections to handle there. We can talk through more of that. But that's all I have right now for going through the seller script, the offer script, qualifying the leads. I'd love to open it up to questions and see what questions you guys have.
I have a quick question, if that's okay.
Yeah, what's up?
So when you're dealing with a seller that's had multiple calls from investors like us, and they're obviously very frustrated with the calls and they just want an immediate offer, how do you handle that?
That's going to happen, especially when you're calling a list that you haven't called before. You're sending direct mail to a list that you're just getting started, and you haven't weeded them out and removed them from your list yet. There's a couple different ways to approach it. Couple different ways. For me, when I'm dealing with an unmotivated seller, I talked about this with one of my students, Vanessa, who's on the call here. When I'm dealing with an unmotivated seller, this is your opportunity to be a little more bold. Ask a little bit more bold questions. Be a little bit more of a contrarian and try to disqualify them in a professional way, right? Doesn't mean be rude, right? These are obvious things, but hey, I've been getting a lot of calls from investors, what's your offer? Oh, okay. Well, I'd love to see if we could find something that works for the both of us, something that's, fair. We are looking to buy another property right now. I'm just curious, why haven't you sold it yet? Right? It's back on them. Why haven't they sold it? They said they want to sell it, or maybe they didn't. But by asking the question, they're either going to say, well, I don't even want to sell it. Okay. So are you just calling me because you don't like these calls? And, I think this is my first time calling you, so I apologize. I'm just doing some outreach here. I am, like I said, looking to buy another house, but, if you are interested in selling, I would love to ask you some questions, maybe take 5 minutes and see if we're a good fit. I'd love to think we could put something together if you are interested in selling. If they're willing to listen that far and you're talking that way, then either A, they've been getting cold calls or direct mail and they just haven't had the right conversation yet with the right person. Maybe they got a call from, no disrespect to VAs, but maybe they just don't like the sound of a foreign accent. When I get a call from someone overseas, my brain doesn't like it. I like the people. I have VAs on my team, right? There's nothing, but I know it's a sales call. That's why my brain doesn't like it. I'm not interested in sales calls personally because I feel like I don't have time to waste. So I'm like, hey, look, I'm sorry. I'm not interested in buying anything. I'd be kind to them, but maybe those are the kind of calls they're getting. So we don't want to necessarily assume that they've had 30-minute phone calls. They've truly gone through and they just want too much. They're unrealistic. We don't know. So if we can handle it like that and put it back on them, well, why haven't you sold yet? Well, I'm not interested in selling, or, oh, they're offering me too low. Oh, offering you too low. Okay. Well, I don't know. You tell me, is your house in like really great shape? Have you already remodeled it? Maybe it's better to list it. No, I haven't fixed it up, but they're just, low ball offers. Well, I'd love to find out more about it and see if we can find a fair offer for it. Like that's kind of where to start. So you're going to get that. And if you can kind of navigate that first 30 seconds and keep them on the phone with questions like that, then you're going to put yourself in at least a decent position to qualify them and see if they're motivated.
Got it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Roshan, we talked about that seller's remorse. So we went through that question. What other questions do we have? Does anybody feel like this is what I went through is any different than what they're doing now? Is anybody following a similar script or a similar process, or is this totally different? All right. So Brian says it's similar. Tony says this is great. Alex says, does your acquisitions team run their own numbers to make offers? Okay. That's a really good question. So short answer is no, they don't run their own numbers. As part of our sales process, we have them go through, gather all the information, and then they send in our ARV text thread a request for ARV. And then my partner, he'll run the ARV and will send that back to the team. So this is all part of that two-step sales process. So the idea is, again, no pressure. We're not trying to make an offer. We have the availability and time to be as thorough as possible. So we want to put our best foot forward. That's our approach. So my partner runs the ARV, gives that back to the sales team. Now, if it's a hot deal, someone that is literally looking to make a decision quickly, and they're not blowing us off, and they are not unmotivated to where we have, more time, then we just, submit the request as is. But if it's a hot deal, then we put in the address, and then we put in fire emojis. Sounds silly, but we put in fire emojis after it, and it's like, yo, we need this back ASAP. We need this information so we can get this offer out. So that's what our team will do. If it's extremely hot and they're like wanting to sell on that first call, we'll go one step further and say, address, fire emojis, on the phone now, can I get it now? So that's kind of our 1, 2, 3 kind of levels there. And then we'll take it back and make that offer. Yep.
Sorry, not to go off script, but regarding the ARVs, do you guys have a certain method that you find to be really good for you to be within like a 10% accuracy? I know it's a tough question to answer, but it just sounds like when you have someone specific focus on that, it really hones in on becoming an expert at it.
Yeah. My partner definitely spends tons and tons of time. So he's got that experience and that insight. So for running ARV, I take it back to basics. It starts with being ideally within a quarter mile of the property, not crossing major streets. We try to find the same bed and bath. We try to find something that's within 250 square feet of the subject property. Similar apples to apples of style of home. In some markets, this is more important than others. In my market, most of the neighborhood is going to be the same type of house, so it's not really an issue. But if it's a house built in the 50s, I want the comps that I use and really give weight to be built in the 50s or 60s too, right? Plus or minus a handful of years. I don't want to be comparing a 1920s house that's got a lot of different like character to it and old style to it to a house built in the 2000s, right? It's not apples to apples. So that's the last piece there. So we just use, that as kind of your guiding structure there to determine the ARVs. And then, that's what my partner uses. Now, based on market knowledge too, is it an appreciating market, a declining market? Is it a volatile market? You may or may not determine you need to, says add last minute. Oh, this is the autopilot guy listening to the call. Okay. So that may determine that you add, a little bit of variance to how conservative or aggressive you are with determining that ARV. We try to just use things that are sold in the past 3 months and use only the solds. We don't care what the active listings are. It might give you some insight into what potentially the future could be, but we only put our weight on what sold in the past 3 months and not trying to wish for anything more than that.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. That Brian, that Otter is just like a call recording thing. Gives you all the notes on the meeting. Okay. So Tyler says, is the person you have making the offer someone different from the initial caller who gathers all the info? I like that question. So this is my 2 cents. This is my approach to it. You're going to get different beliefs or approaches to this. We have all of our closers, acquisition guys, take the initial calls. And they're also the ones making the offers or the ones getting the deal signed. There is no acquisition specialist. There is no leads manager who's taking the inbound initial call. I don't like that personally, even though I know some people really successful that are doing it that way. I just personally believe if there's a good deal, I want my best guys on that phone call, taking it and putting it in the best position to be a good deal. And my belief, again, someone could argue different. The reason we're getting 6-figure deals is because we have our good sales guys recognizing a good, juicy opportunity, and they're not following the script and then just like doing a easy sale and putting us in a position to get an okay deal, right? If there's, and the way I have our leads kind of set up is I'm not flooding our team with tons and tons of outbound leads from cold calling and SMS text campaigns. The leads we're getting are highly, well, they're more expensive, higher quality leads, or at least they should be, with things like TV and radio and PPC. Direct mail, you know, is outbound, but it's a higher quality outbound than any other outbound source. So we're doing those strategies, and that's it. And yeah, Eric, I have it on the script slide. That's just the last slide I ended with. Technically, I have one more free giveaway for you guys here if you wanted to snap this. Let me make sure this is still working and it's not an old one. Let me make sure. I'm going to use it myself. Okay. Yeah, it's still working. So this is a free giveaway for you guys. All my scripts, deal analyzer, other goodies like that, you guys can get right here at deanrogers.com/free. Those are all the same things that I've used for closing the 600 deals that I've done. And so I hope that they're helpful for you guys as well. You guys can always reach out with any questions you have on Instagram. I'm happy to answer any of that. So, okay, next question. Let's see here. So yeah, next question from Alex. When new leads come in, do you have round robin or do first to claim for your acquisitions team? Good question. So I do first to claim. And for me, I saw the moments that I made this competitive for my sales guys, the intention around being on top of things increased dramatically. And I had heard it from several educators out there around the time I made that decision, because at first I kind of had it set up where someone was kind of in control of this lead source. Someone kind of had first dibs on this lead source. And after 5 minutes, you know, then it was for anybody's taking. Then I just ripped the Band-Aid off and said, look, everybody's on the same level playing field. Everybody's got the same opportunity. We're not competing against each other. Like, we're on the same team here, but hey, it's team focus. We got to win. We got to answer these calls immediately. And when we have an inbound lead source, like someone fills something out on our website, it is scientifically, statistically proven that if you answer those calls instantly, as opposed to waiting even a minute or 2 minutes or anything longer than that, to increase your chances of putting a deal together. So the moment we did that, the moment the team got more intentional, and they'll constantly tell me, joking and kind of laughing about it, that, man, you know, Angel is so quick on the phones. I'm trying to answer. He must be hungry for a deal, because I try to answer this call. I swear, the moment it rings on my phone barely vibrates. I press the button, I answer it, and it's already hung up. Like, the other guy got it. So they're way more on top of it just because of that. So I think it's important to do that. You just set some good, fair play, rules of the game. For us, as soon as someone makes contact with the seller, it's their lead, right? It's their lead. But until someone has made contact, it's fair game. So even though you might have called and sent a text, it's still not your lead. You haven't made contact. So the next person can call and make that same effort.
And for how long is that lead, that person's lead? Like, say it's somebody that's like, oh, I'm ready to sell in 6 months. Is that person still assigned to them? Is that lead still assigned to the acquisitions for 6 months?
You're saying the seller says they don't want to sell until 6 months?
Yep, correct.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll still stay theirs. Now, once, let's say the motivation is not there, we have basically like let's call it like a 3 to 4 week um, uh, rule, to where if they haven't sold within that period of time, then we move it off of the dashboard, the leads dashboard, into warm. Okay. And that's the whole mindset behind, like, we only want real leads on the dashboard, sell deals that we want to do now and that are possible to do now. So look, we got a lot of leads in our system, but on our dashboard, we might have 50, and it doesn't look like there's a lot. And that includes the deals we have in escrow, which is, like 15 deals right now. So there's really only like 35 leads on the dashboard right now. And that's to be focused on. We only want the ones in front of us that are real.
Is that 35 per acquisition, or is that 35 total for all acquisitions? Wow. Total. And how many acquisitions do you have?
2.
Okay, amazing. So then you have 35. Is there a specific amount that you say there should not be more than on that active leads page?
No, as many that are real, we'll keep there for sure. But we definitely try to clean it out, because we had hundreds on there before. And the complaint was, look, I'm spending all day just kind of like filtering through this. And then we got really focused to try to stay focused on attacking our tasks. So we got very task oriented. We hired a leads manager, and she oversees making sure everybody's staying on top of it. She sends 3 text messages a day. One is in the morning to say how many tasks each person has. There's an update at lunchtime. And then there's a late afternoon text to say how many tasks are left. And it's just kind of like, hello, like, you see what you got here? Like, you didn't finish what you needed to do, or, good job type of thing.
That's really cool. So are they mainly working off of tasks, new leads, and that activity and the active leads page, open leads?
Yeah.
So every lead has a task.
Yeah. You could argue that they're only focused on the new leads, that their phone is ringing, or we got inbound, and then they're going after right away, and just their tasks. Because unless they have something that's, they've got too much time on their hands and they've already gotten through everything, usually then they'll kind of go look at the dashboard. They'll go to the warm leads and do some follow-up. But generally speaking, it's just those new leads. And another thing that the leads manager does, just as an added layer of staying on top of it, is as soon as a lead comes in from like website or something, each of our team member gets a text. We also have the speed to lead function turned on, where it will ring their phone right away. But we also have our leads manager that will send a text in our team thread and say, like, new lead from the website, right? Or whatever it is.
Got it. Okay, really cool. And I guess I'm hogging the questions here, but you're dropping some gold. I appreciate it. So do you have the acquisitions on a dialer at all for the warm leads? Like, would you put those into like a bulk dialer, or no, or just have them go one by one on the click the call next lead?
Yeah, the power dialer. Yeah, we only do it through the power dialer. You could argue we should have a dialer. I've been tempted to do that, but the honest truth is I just didn't want to have another thing I had to set up and manage. You could call it lazy, but I don't know. I could be convinced. Someone could probably convince me with some hard to deny data, but I feel like it's my job to provide quality leads that continue to come in each and every day, and not to have them just be like follow-up dogs, So the tasks are there to focus on the follow-up. The leads manager is there to do outbound calls to those warm leads to follow up, try to bring them back. And that's kind of what her extra time is used for.
Really neat. Appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Yep, you bet. Let's see. So your only VA for this part of the business is a lead manager. Yes. For me, Tyler, that's the only VA that I have. Everyone else is local. And that's just the way I prefer it.
Okay. So you have two acquisitions people and then the lead manager slash VA.
So I have me and a business partner. The business partner, he's also boots on the ground. He'll go on appointments. He manages our flips. He runs all the ARVs. He'll help, either one of us will kind of be on call to help make decisions on deals and help push deals forward, give green lights on deals. So we both kind of participate in that. And then we have our office manager who's local in my partner's office. We don't have an actual office, brick and mortar office, but my partner is a realtor and has an office as being one of the top realtors at the brokerage. So we kind of use that for her to be local there in the office. And then the two acquisition managers, they are local but work at home. But yeah, I was big under the belief, Tyler, that I wanted to build the brand, the presence, the everything local, so that I had that local feel and touch, as opposed to having VA closers. And again, I have a buddy in my market who has only VA closers. Well, he just hired a local person, so he kind of followed a little bit on that after the fact, and has seen better results actually as a result of doing that. But he had only had VA closers before and was doing pretty darn good. So
yeah, it's interesting to see how people structure it differently. Like there's so many different ways you can do it.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yep. All right. How much do you pay your acquisitions person? From Brian. For me, each person has a base salary, and it's a little different between each person. And market specifically, it might be contextually a little different for each and every person. In Central California, for me, I'd say the median salary is not as high as a major city. So for me, I have the base salary, and then I do 10% commission on every deal closed, 10% of gross profit. So on that deal, we made $105,000. That acquisition manager, he made 10,500. So we do the 10%. We do have some other team bonuses that we have every month. So we do 100,000 net profit. Each person gets 1,000, and so on and so forth. So it's 1% of net profit above 100,000. And then our certain sales guys also have some accelerators. So we have one guy who goes from 10% bonus to 15% bonus after a certain number of deals closed within the year. We have other little fun games that we kind of create within the company too. Like a current game that's going on right now, one of our sales guys, he was like, all right, so I got that deal under contract. We just bought it. The son who's living in the house is going to buy it. He's getting an FHA loan. It's going to take 90 days. How many deals do I need to close before in order for me to get a $10,000 bonus? Like, he just threw the game out there. And I was like, put $250,000 of profit in the bank, revenue in the bank, not like future, but like in the bank in 90 days, and I'll give you an extra $10,000. So I think it's fun to kind of create those little extra games, because it gets people, on the hunt and going after something that's a goal in front of them. All right, let's see. Where can I find or hire a VA closer? From Raymond. So lots of sources. There's places like Upwork. There's companies like Reba Global. Let me see if I can pull up my browser over here. Let me try to find this. Yeah, so there's a company called Reba Global, REBA Global. They're a VA staffing company. One of my buddies runs that. He's been doing it for a long time. So you'll find good people there. So there's agencies that will hire for you, and then there is places like Upwork and different things like that where you can go hunt and find them yourself.
Got it. And Reba, would you mind sharing your contact information so I can contact him and mention that I spoke to you?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And
Yeah,
does he also specialize or have a group where wholesale closers, like I'm looking for a real acquisition closer right now?
I believe they do. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yep. Do you only operate within California from Eric? Yep. I only operate in Central California, just to narrow my focus. I've been teased and tempted with going national and multi-state and multi-market. I don't know. I mean, I guess I could do it, and someone could probably argue I'd make more money and do more deals. But I've enjoyed staying local and doubling down and tripling down and just staying local. So that's just been my experience and my preference. Cool. Lots of good questions. Any other last questions before we hop here?
Is there any way you can go through show us your flow through REsimpli? Your acquisitions?
Yeah, well, let's see. I guess that's one thing I didn't necessarily talk about. So when it comes to my flow, what specifically are you looking to kind of answer for yourself?
Like both acquisitions come in or that you have, right? First thing they do is they go to contract sent waiting for signature, or I'm not sure how your stage of leads are. They look at those, or are they going to their tasks first? Are they going to just kind of understanding that flow? Like what is their day to day? How should they start, and what their flow looks like within the CRM?
Yeah. Good question. So they do start out their day each day by looking at their tasks. So that has become their focal point. Because at first it did feel really disorganized. It felt like, where do I start? Do I start looking at different stages and scrolling through there? And we spent a lot of time talking through that. It was the moment that we said, all right, tasks are driving all of our actions, that we got way more focused. There was more clarity, and it was easy to understand what we needed to do. So at the beginning of the day, they'll log in, they'll look if there's any new leads that came in over the night, because that happens from time to time. Some people submitting stuff at 2 a.m. or whatever. So if there are, we'll make those calls out right away. And then the next step is just to go straight to the tasks. Focusing on the tasks allows you to look at the tasks and understand, okay, this is someone I needed to get back today. So I know I need to do some more due diligence and get some stuff. So maybe I'll work on some of that now. Some of these other addresses in here, the people weren't that motivated. So maybe I just kind of wait to call them a little bit later on, or try to knock those out now based on the way that their day is set up. And their day to make those decisions are going to be based on maybe some appointments that they have scheduled and some other things they need to work through. Right. So that's kind of how they'll get in. And then naturally they're going to get calls that are inbound throughout the day. So they may be at the desk and be able to pull up REsimpli and create a new lead and fill it all out there, or they might be on the road and take that call, and then it flows in. Whenever a call does come in, our leads manager listens to every single phone call, and she gives it a score. Okay. So it's 1 out of 10. So this is the call score template. This is what our leads manager will go through, and she'll listen to the call. And this is literally just a mirror image of the seller script. of the major talking points. So did we get the contact information, establish expectations, blah, 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 blah. Now, if you just ask the question, but you don't really actually get the information, then you get a 0.5. And if you ask it, dive deeper, get the real information, then it's a 1 out of 1. This isn't something that like people get, smacked on the butt with a ruler or something. Like, you don't get in trouble if you have a shitty call score, but it's just an opportunity because what happens is the leads manager listens to the call. She does a copy and paste of this. She posts it inside of the activity section. Yep. And then she gives the score, and then she tags the acquisition manager. So they automatically get that text and email that shows them what their call score is. And it's just a mental reminder of like, oh yeah, I did crush it on that call. Or yeah, that call sucked ass. I need to be better, Yeah. And then it's also something that we use internally to get better at our process, not only the calls, but how we grade the calls on our Wednesday calls. Every Wednesday morning, we go and we listen to one call from an acquisition manager. It could be a good call that we close the deal, or a really absolutely terrible 2-minute call that we totally blew it. And usually we'll talk for 30 minutes to an hour about a 2-minute call or a 4-minute call or however long it is, because there's that much to learn from it, right? And a lot of it comes down to like, well, dude, you totally blew that call. You didn't qualify them. Yeah. Even though you close over $1 million of revenue for us every single year for the past several years, you're a good closer. You totally blew it on this call. And why did you do that? Well, it's not a why did you do that? You just listen and you tell that you can understand why. They rushed through it. They didn't ask the right questions, even though they know they need to ask the questions. And so then you can get to the bottom of it. Like, what was going on? Well, I was just coming up to an appointment and I had like 3 minutes before the appointment. Well, then don't try to fit the call in 3 minutes. Just tell them like, hey, I wanted to answer your call. Saw that you called. I wanted you to know that we're a real company. We're on the other side of the phone here. I'm just rolling up to a seller appointment right now. I'm about to meet and talk about this house, see if they want to sell. Is it all right if I call you back after? Like that would have been a much better call than you totally like screwing up that one,
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the seller script. Then we grade the offer script, and that just helps us all stay in sync. It helps make sure the leads manager is following each and everything going on. She can give me feedback. She understands what's happening with the acquisition manager, so she can help quarterback. She can help remind them about the appointment. She can help them say, hey, we just got a text message back about our offer. Can you get on it right now? And so there's a lot better communication that's going on between the team. All right, let's see. We got anything else?
Thank you.
Here? Yep, for sure. All right, any last questions, guys?
Yeah, I got a quick one, Dean.
Yep.
So you guys only go out to the in-person, or your acquisitions people only go out to an in-person appointment after the offer has been accepted?
Most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah, most of the time. And the reason being because, again, going back to the argument of we're not trying to sell the seller. We're not trying to compete on offers. So a lot of the times the deals we're getting, it's a good deal. It's a juicy deal. It's not like we're barely making a couple $1,000. So the condition of the property has to be so dialed in and perfect. If it's off by $5,000 or something because the AC sucked ass or something, it's not going to kill the deal. It's just going to be a disappointment, but we should have qualified and asked more details about the AC for us not to be surprised. So if we can up front do a better job qualifying and asking good questions in detail, then we don't necessarily need to go out because look, the difference between, if I were to literally go down the past 20 deals we closed, for example, what was our estimated repair costs? It's literally going to be 40 grand, 40 grand, 45 grand, 50 grand, 50 grand, 45, 40. Like it's literally almost all in the same area because like I said before, unless it's a like totally junker, that has extensive work, I mean, it's pretty boilerplate. You know, it's going to be, does it need a new roof or not? Does it need a new AC or not? Okay. Is the inside structurally okay? Okay. Well, it's more or less the same type of square footage houses. So this is a $45,000 project to do all new cosmetic stuff. The roof and AC are fine. So it's 45 grand, you know? And each buyer is going to have a different number for what their repair costs are. So if we're just generally close and our numbers account for them making a reasonable profit, not a juicy, big profit, and not a super like nobody's going to buy this profit, then the fluctuation between 5 and 10 grand isn't so critical for there to be a deal or not, you know?
Okay. So you have the contract in writing and signed typically before you even go out there in person?
Typically.
And
yeah,
the sellers don't find that kind of strange ever?
You will get some opposition to it from some, but I think because of the confidence in which we speak and we just kind of tell them that's what our process is, that's just how it goes, you know? And depending upon the conversation that we're having and how they're reacting to us and all of those kind of things, then in some cases it makes sense for us to go out to see it in person. It might make sense for us to go out in person because we need to build more rapport, right? Because of the feedback they're giving us. We might need to go out because they're expecting to sign in person. They're not used to doing stuff online or they're not comfortable with it. So those would be the reasons that would lead us to go out the door and do it more that way.
Okay. All right.
Question from Eric. Are we given the offer script along with the seller script? I'll have to check if I have it in there. You might have looked already, Eric, and it might not be in there. If it's not, that'll be something I'll work on. Cool. Any other questions? Cool. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on and engaging and asking good questions. I hope this was helpful for you guys. Like I said, connect with me on Instagram, Dean Rogers Real Estate. I love to connect with people and stay in touch. Hopefully we can find ways to help each other out.
Thanks, Dean. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care.